Hey, Mark Clark here, author of The Problem of God, and we're exploring the big questions that skeptics have against Christianity. And as someone who explored those questions to become a Christian when I was 18 or 19, I wrote a book about it that explores those answers. And the question we're dealing with today is the question of hell. And this isn't just a kind of a hypothetical question for me. I come from a family that aren't believers. My own father died when I was 15 and wasn't a Christian. And so it really is a question that I've delved into and wrestled with for a lot of my life. Is this even a concept anymore, or should we kind of abandon it? And what I began to realize, there's two ideas that you have to chase down in regard to the question of hell. The first one is, does it actually logically make sense? And then secondly, is it a biblical teaching? And so, and what we also begin to realize is that when somebody doesn't like the concept of hell, this place that is a separation from God for eternity because someone, didn't believe in Jesus, we realize that it's not really an evidential thing that people push back on. They don't have evidence to say hell doesn't exist. It's more of a repulsion. It's the sense of you don't like the feeling of it in your gut, and so you reject it. But we have to be very careful with that because there's lots of things in life that don't necessarily feel good, but they're actually true or they're right. Letting someone go from a job never feels good, but it might be the right thing to do. And then there's things in life that feel good, but they're not right. The founder of adultery.com, for instance, said that adultery is the way of life. You gotta spice it up. You gotta have variety in life. Well, adultery might feel good for a certain time, but it's actually fundamentally wrong. So be very careful to trust how you feel about things, because sometimes how you feel about things can get you off course. That's issue number one. Issue number two is, does it actually logically make sense that there would be this place of punishment? I think it does, and I think if you look into your experience, you know that's true. If you look around the world and you see villages in Africa, let's say, and where people get raped and tortured and women get carried away with their children, and those people are never brought to justice. You might say to yourself, well, I really do hope that there's a place of judgment for them. There's no men in those villages saying, well, I hope that there's no hell. I hope there's no judgment for these people. If there is no hell for most of the world, that's a reason not to worship God, because then justice didn't get meted out. Where did your sense of justice actually come from? It's on a microcosm what God does on a macrocosm. He brings ultimate justice to the world and to people and to the decisions that we've made in life. Now, the thing is people say, well, maybe hell is too long because it's forever, so it's a bit of an overcooking. People don't really deserve that. But what we have to understand is judgment, even in our own world, isn't meted out on people because of how long it took to commit a crime. It's about the heaviness of the crime. And so, for instance, if you murder someone, it might only take you 30 seconds to murder them, but you go to jail for the rest of your life. So the question is, what is the actual violation of what you've done? And of course, if you're violating and going against a holy God who is fully perfect and infinite and eternal all things, then it actually might make sense. The other thing is that people say, well, I don't like the concept of hell because it's too much punishment for what people have done. It's too harsh. But the reality is the Bible makes very clear that God judges people based on what they've done. And so his judgment's not the same for everyone. It is perfect. It is based on him as the ultimate judge who knows all things and is love. And so it actually upholds the concept of love and justice at the same time. And of course, the reality is the Bible talks about it, and people say, well, it's such an odd concept because there's fire and there's people, in the flames. We have to understand the Bible speaks in metaphors. And every time the Bible uses fire as a judgment, it is really a metaphor. Constantly through the Bible, it's a metaphor. Now, that's not to say it's not going to be harsh. Of course, sometimes you have a picture of something and you say, okay, well, that's just a picture. It's not literal. Well, that doesn't mean that sometimes a picture is pointing towards something that might even be worse, the sense of isolation from a holy and just God. That every good thing you have in your life, from sex to music to art to the breath in your lungs, is given to you by a loving God of grace who gives it to you every day. Hell is the place where all of those things are gone and you are without them, which is why Jesus came on a cross, took both the hell of God, the wrath of God, sin on himself, and took showing the love of God in the person and the work of Jesus to set you free. So if you repent of sin and trust in that work, that you're actually set free from the place that the Bible describes as hell. And that's really the point of a huge part of the point of the gospel, that this is a free offer to anyone who looks at Jesus and gives their life to him.